Okay, so your first poem from your English textbook is Dust of Snow. Okay, just follow the book Dust of Snow, and the poem is written by Robert Frost. Okay, I hope you have read one of the poem by Robert Frost in class 9. Can you name the poem? Can you name the poem? Which poem you have learned composed by Robert Frost? Can you name the poem? Yes, The Road Not Taken. Okay, now tell me, I will be giving you a brief introduction about the poet. Okay, The Road Not Taken. Yes, I will be giving you a brief introduction about the poet. So this Dust of Snow, this is a very short poem, simple and short poem, but it has some deeper and larger meaning. You can see the poem is very short, very simple, but it has some deeper and larger meaning. And now this Dust of Snow, this poem, it's composed by Robert Frost. Can you tell me the full name of Robert Frost? Yes, Uttam, good morning. Can you tell me what was the full name of Robert Frost? As you have read already the poem, The Road Not Taken, can you tell me what was the full name of Robert Frost? Yes? Anyone? What was the full name of Robert Frost? Yes, the Bushmita, it's Robert Lee Frost. Okay, and Robert Frost, we generally know him as Robert Frost, and Robert Lee Frost, he was an American poet and playwright. Okay, he was an American poet and playwright, and we have read many of his poems like Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, The Road Not Taken, and even in class 10 we are going to read these two poems, Dust of Snow and Fire and Ice. So today I will be teaching you the poem Dust of Snow. Okay, so let's start. So Dust of Snow. Okay, so from the title means the snow particles are so small. Okay, dust of snow means very tiny particles of snow. The snow particles are so small that the poet referred to them as dust of snow. Okay, so this is the title, Dust of Snow, and dust of snow means dust. Actually the word dust means tiny particles. Okay, the word dust means tiny particles. You can note it down in your book. The word dust means tiny particles, and the snow particles are so small that the poet referred to them as dust of snow. Have you understood the meaning of the title of the poem? Have you understood the meaning of the title of the poem? Dust means tiny particles, okay, and the snow particles are so small that the poet referred to them as dust of snow. Okay, and this poem is a symbolical poem. Okay, this poem is a symbolical poem and it stands for joy. Okay, dust of snow stands for joy. Write it down in your book, note it down, everything. Dust of snow stands for joy. This is a symbolical poem and it stands for joy. Now I am going to read out the poem. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Okay, So you can see this poem is very simple and very short poem, though it has some deeper and larger meaning. Okay, now I am going to explain you everything. So you can see the poem is divided into two stanzas. Okay, you can see it is divided into two stanzas. So I am going to give you the explanation of the first stanza. Listen to me very carefully. This poem, Dust of Snow, it is set in a scene where the poet was in a very awful mood. Okay, the poem was set in a scene where the poet was in a very bad mood. He had a terrible day. Okay, he had experienced a terrible day. And now when the poet was walking by a hemlock tree, okay, what is a hemlock tree? A hemlock tree is a poisonous plant, okay, with small white flowers. Okay, when the poet was in a very bad mood during that time, he was walking by a hemlock tree. As he passes by the tree, a crow throws some snow dust on him. Okay, so when the poet was passing by the tree during that time, the crow throws some snow dust on him. Whether it falls on the shoulder or on the head of the poet, there is nothing such mentioned in the poem. Okay, but from the first stanza we came to know that the poet was in a very bad or awful mood. Awful means very bad. He was having a very terrible day, and during that time he was walking by a hemlock tree. As he passes by the tree, a crow throws some snow dust on him. Whether it falls on his head or his shoulder, there is nothing such mentioned in the poem. Okay, we only came to know that the crow throws some dust of snow on the poet, and thus it changes the poet's mood. Now have you understood the first stanza? Have you understood what I have said? Have you understood what I have said you? Okay, now you can see in the first two stanza, okay, the poet has mentioned two agents of nature. One is the crow, another one is the hemlock tree. Okay, the poet has mentioned two agents of nature. One is the crow, another one is the hemlock tree, and both signify sadness and gloom. Okay, generally these two agents of nature, they are having a negative reference, crow and hemlock tree. Okay, these two are the agents of nature, and these two are having the negative reference. Okay, these are not the symbol of positivity, these are having the negative reference, and both crow and hemlock tree signifies sadness and gloom. Okay, crow and hemlock tree both signifies sadness and glooms. And I have not started with the second stanza, Abhinandan. I am still explaining the first stanza of the poem. Okay, I am still explaining the first stanza. I have said only that crow and hemlock tree, you can see, if you are reading the first stanza, you can see in the first line crow is mentioned, and in the last line of the first stanza hemlock tree is there. Okay, so these two agents of nature, hemlock tree and crow, signifies sadness and gloom. These are negative reference. Okay, generally we know crow and hemlock tree, this signifies sadness and gloom. Okay, and this significance, it's like the poet's mood in the opening scene. So we have seen that In the beginning of the stanza, we have seen that poet was having a very terrible day. He was in a very sad mood. He was in a very terrible mood. Okay, he was in a very awful mood, and these two agents of nature both signify sadness and gloom. Okay, so by using these two agents of nature, crow and hemlock tree, the poet wants to indicate a sad scene. Okay, the poet wants to indicate a sad scene, and please note it down. Beside crow and hemlock tree, these are two negative reference. Okay, and it signifies sadness and gloom. Is it clear? Students, am I clear to you? Do you have any doubt in the first stanza? Do you have any doubt in the first stanza? Okay. Okay. Now come to the second one, second stanza of the poem. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. So, rued means held in regret, okay. So, for unknown reasons, the poet was having a terrible day, okay. He was in a very awful mood. Already I have mentioned you that for unknown reason, the poet was having a terrible day. He was in a very awful mood, but the falling of snow changes his mood instantly. So when he passes by the hemlock tree and when the crow throws some snow dust on him, during that time it changes his mood instantly, and he had already spent his day in a very bad mood, but the rest of the day it was saved by the crow and the hemlock tree. Okay, so the falling of the snow, it just changes his mood instantly. So generally we know that this hemlock tree and crow are used for negative reference. Already I have mentioned you in the first stanza that generally we know that hemlock tree and crow, these are used for negative reference. Okay, but the poet used them beautifully to portray that inauspicious things can also bring joy and happiness to us. Okay, these two things, crow and hemlock tree, these change the poet mood in such a way the poet want to depict, the poet want to beautifully portray that generally we know that crow and hemlock tree, these are two inauspicious things, these are two these are two negative references. Okay, but here we have seen due to these two agents of nature, the inauspicious things like crow and the hemlock tree, they can bring joy and happiness in poet's life also. Actually here the poet wants to highlight that something which is linked with negative energy, they can also be the harbinger of change and happiness. Okay, you can see both crow and the hemlock tree, these are two the negative energy, but here the poet depicted it so beautifully, and this negative energy can be the harbinger of change and happiness. So here the poet tried to break down all the preconceived notions. What are the preconceived notions? We know that crow and hemlock tree, these are negative reference, but when the dust of snow falls upon the poet, during that time it changes the mood of the poet instantly, and some part of the day was saved. Okay, so we have seen through this poem that though these two agents of nature are having the negative reference, but they can be the harbinger of change and happiness in poet's life. Okay, so the supremacy of nature, The supremacy of nature made the poet realize that how petty his problem was. At first we came to know that he was in a very bad mood. But when this crow and the hemlock tree that changes the poet's mood during that time, the poet understood that how petty his problem was. Okay, so like this way the poet's day was saved. Okay, I have explained you the second stanza also. And now what is the message of the poem? What is the message of the poem? What we have learned from the poem? See, even a simple moment has a large significance in our life. This is the message of our poem. Even a simple moment has a large significance in our life. And the poet lights upon the unimaginable healing power of nature. We have seen the poet was in a very terrible mood, but the falling of snow just changed the poet's mood instantly. So we came to know the poet, and also the poet lights upon the unimaginable healing power of nature. How these two agents of nature heal the poet's mood. Okay, is it clear? Is it clear to you? Okay. Now come to the literary devices used here in the poem. What are the literary devices used here in the poem? Okay. See, shook down on me. Okay, shook down on me. This is the second line of the first stanza. Okay, this is the second line of the first stanza. Shook down on me. Okay, you can get here the prominence of vowel sound O, shook down on. Okay, so we are getting the vowel sound repeatedly. So the prominence of vowel sound throughout the line, you are getting the prominence of vowel sound O throughout the line. So this is known as assonance. This is known as assonance. Okay, ASSONANCE. This is known as assonance. The prominence of vowel sound throughout the line. Here in this line, shook down on me, we are getting the O sound. Okay, so this is an example of assonance. ASSONANCE. Is it clear? Just underline it and write it down. Assonance. Shook down on me. Shook down on me. This is an example of assonance. Means prominence of vowel sound throughout the line. Okay. Shook, O, down, O, on, O. So you are getting repeatedly, you are getting the vowel sound O. Okay. So this is an example of assonance. Now come to the second stanza. Has given my heart. Has given my heart. See, eighth sound. Eighth sound, has, heart. Again same thing. And same sub part. And saved sub part. And saved some part. Okay. Saved, S sound. Again S sound. Okay, so the occurrence of the same letter or the sound at the beginning of the adjacent word, we call it alliteration. We call it alliteration. The occurrence of the same sound or the same letter at the beginning of the adjacent word, we call it alliteration. You can get the example of alliteration in the second stanza, first line. Has given my heart, H and H, has H and heart H. Again you are getting the same example. And saved some part, saved some, both again S sound. So this is an example of alliteration. Okay. Now throughout the poem you are not getting any punctuation mark. In the last line you are getting a full stop. You can see throughout the poem you have not got any punctuation mark. Okay, so when the same sentence continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation mark, we call it enjambment. We call it enjambment. Okay, you can see there is no punctuation mark here. Throughout the poem there is no punctuation mark. The last line of the poem we are getting a full stop. So when the same sentence continues to the next line without the use of any punctuation mark, we call it enjambment. E-N-J-A-M-B-M-E-N-T. Enjambment. Okay. So these are the 3 literary devices used here in the poem. And now you have to know the rhyming scheme of the poem. The rhyming scheme. Okay, the last letter you have, the last word you have to know, and the sound also, which is rhyming to the next word. So here in the first stanza, crow, that means we are going to write A, then me. So crow is not rhyming with the next word me, so beside me we are going to write B. Okay, so like this way if you find it out, you will get A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. This is the rhyming scheme of the poem. Okay, this is the rhyming scheme of the poem. So these 3 literary devices you have to know along with the rhyming scheme. 3 literary devices are assonance, another one is the alliteration, and the third one is enjambment. You have to know all these 3 along with the rhyming scheme. Is it clear? Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Enjambment, okay, then alliteration, assonance. These are the things you have to learn. Okay, enjambment, assonance, okay, and alliteration. These are the poetic devices you have to learn. Go through the poem at your home. If you find any difficulty, in my next class I would like to discuss with you. Okay? Till then, thank you very much. The class is end now. Go through the poem at your home. Thank you.